Hello and welcome to Geek Speak with Envision IT, a podcast for business leaders and technology experts that like to stay on top of the latest security news and listen to interviews with insightful industry leaders. I'm Bill Crane, Chief Stakeholder Architect and CTO at Envision IT. Let's get started. Today, Nancy Pouch, Chief Evangelist of Stakeholder Value and President of Envision IT, is joining me to co-host an exciting episode of Geek Speak. Today we have a special guest, Steve Hanrahan. He is the Chief Operating Officer of Habitat for Humanity of Dane County. Welcome, Steve.
Good morning. Nice to be with you.
You bet. Maybe we could start. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself and about Habitat for Humanity.
Well, Habitat, as a lot of folks know, is most well known for the building of houses, and we do that for the low to moderate income families in the Dane County area. We serve families with incomes between 30 and 60% of the area media income. We also do financial capability training. We can reach more families that way, helping them learn how to budget and certainly learn how to take care of a home once they get in those and what have you. But one of the areas that we're trying to grow exponentially, if you will, is our home repair program. There are many homes out there that with the right kinds of repair can meet the needs of a family for many years to come. So we're hoping that can help us get more families served in the area and preserve the homes that are already existing. We're an organization locally, about 35 employees, and about 250 volunteers that help us on a regular basis. We're part of Habitat for Humanity International, which has 1,200 affiliates in the United States, but does operate worldwide and has built over 1 million homes since the organization started. So in a nutshell, we're best known for our building with people wearing hard hats and carrying hammers and doing a lot of sawing. So that's what we are and what we do.
That's awesome. Yeah, that is incredible work that all of you do. And I guess to do a lot of that work, you guys do rely heavily on technology. And, one of the things that we're talking about today, especially these times, is that, with people working remotely and work from home, we've seen where the hackers are definitely in full force, and it's quite a shame they are. But one of the things that we thought about with Habitat in particular was you guys are very proactive and doing end user security training. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about that. What brought you to that, and maybe what you did previously.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, the answer to what we did previously is not much and not enough. Let's put it that way. We, I think, have grown like many organizations have with technology. And then you get to a certain point where the complexity kind of takes over. The security aspect of it is really more than just trying to ensure that we keep our networks secure. We have legal requirements with our homeowners, mortgage documentation, applications. We have social security numbers. We have all kinds of things that need to be legally kept confidential. So we're very concerned about any kind of a breach that we could have. And we knew it was getting too big for us to handle internally. Turn to you guys to partner with. And we've been very pleased with being able to at least, as you've said, increase the awareness of the problem out there. It is scary to think that, every minute of every day, somebody out there could potentially be trying to get into your system and cause us all kinds of problems. So we started at 0 miles an hour, and maybe we're getting close to the halfway point to 100, but it's been very beneficial.
Yeah. And, one of the things is that we've seen, with the training and then also the testing as well is, we kind of compare each other to our peers in our own industries. And I would have to say you and your users are well above the average. You guys score very well. So how was it that the users accepted the training and how do they feel about it? today.
Well, I'm very happy to hear you say that. It was a little pushback at the beginning because everyone has, of course, experienced the required webinar that they need to watch and listen to. But I really think the importance of it and the reason it caught on is twofold. One, I really do believe that as a not-for-profit, one of our goals and one of our strategic steps is that we can help provide our employees with things other than a higher salary. And one of the things that security awareness training has done is, I think, open their eyes to understand that they learn about this and it helps Habitat. They can take that and see a direct correlation between that and their cell phones, their home computers, their tablets. And so I think once I remember the first video that we watched, and I'm fairly aware of what's going on out there. And I got to tell you, I learned a lot from that first one. And I think based on comments that I received, many people felt the same way. The nice thing about it is we were able to track who participated in the training and who needed a little bit of a nudge. So right down to it, and it's a requirement. And we had 100% participation in the end. The rest of it, kind of fell into place. The emails, the test emails that go out, I think people were alarmed at first. They were going, "Oh my God, did I do something wrong?" And, thankfully, since I think the training started, we've had very few of those accidental clicks on bad emails. So I think it's, first of all, that we were able to bring it into a personal level and assist our employees understanding a bigger picture. And then you add to it, I think everybody in our environment has a little bit of respect for the fact that we're a mortgage company. And we do need to make sure we don't jeopardize the integrity of the information we have on hand. So those two things, I think, are the big factors.
Yeah, for sure. It's, it's just kind of another layer, and it's an important one. We always talk about layers of security. So, you guys are doing a lot around, endpoint protection and firewalls and so on, but this is an important portion of that as well. And one of the things that we found too is that users kind of take what they're learning at work and they certainly apply it there, but then they can go home and, kind of apply it to their personal life. And, we've even seen where, people share that knowledge with their family and friends. So that's kind of a nice little benefit.
Yeah, it's a little bit unrelated, but similar with all the talk last week about issues with Zoom. It was interesting that one of our employees who happens to be kind of in charge of those accounts was actually on a personal Zoom on Friday night that got bombed, right after she had been talking to the staff about it. And that's very similar to what's going on with the security emails that are out there. People come in and say, "Man, I got this email over the weekend that was unbelievable." But click on it because I knew better.
Oh, and good.
That's kind of enlightening and it's satisfying at the same time. So
that's awesome. One of the reasons we wanted to talk with you guys, first, guys, you were proactive and, implemented this, and it's been pretty successful for you. And we wanted to share that with others that are maybe, not doing any security training or maybe they're thinking about it, but just not really sure. I guess, what would you, say to those people that are maybe considering proactive training?
I think if you would sit down for a couple of minutes and think about the actual risk to your organization, it's almost a no-brainer. I don't think there's an organization out there that could afford to take some of the steps backward that you would take in the event of a breach of any manner, even if it was simply to upset your ability to do day-to-day, business. That would be enough. But if they have secure information that might even just be, it might be confidential like ours, or maybe it's just strategic in nature and they don't want competitors out there to know about it. If you just look at it from that angle alone, it makes sense to address it. And training is certainly important. I think one of the things you guys bring to the table is training is not always looked upon as a positive thing. People, the drudgery of it and go, oh, no, I got another training session. The quality of the training and the examples that are given have made it, kind of enjoyable. People can see in real life that they're not just telling you what could happen. They're showing you, the experts, on exactly how it happens and what could happen to you. And I think other organizations could benefit the same way we have. We're providing their employees with knowledge that they can apply outside of the office. The fear of identity theft should be on everybody's mind if they're using any kind of the internet or what have you. And I think this helps prepare them for at least feeling like there are ways to control it. They may not have the capital to put in the kind of systems hardware-wise that you have in an office, but there's certainly things you can do with your network at home to make sure that you're kind of mirroring that. And so I think, to get back to your question, I think the benefit and far outweighs the risk of not doing anything. So I would just suggest that is the approach most people take, is look at the overall risk. One bad breach could, you're dead in the water for whatever time it takes to get control of that.
Yeah. You're right. It only takes, one click to kind of ruin someone's day and
I'll say
hurt the organization as well. So,
yeah.
Well, Steve, we really, really appreciate your partnership, and everything you guys do for the community is wonderful. So thank you so much for joining us today. We really do appreciate it.
You're more than welcome. I'd be happy to help anytime you need it.
Okay, so this next interview is with Leah Roe. We met Leah through the conscious business community here in South Central Wisconsin, and we're just so excited with the introduction because we are so like-minded as far as creating and fostering conscious cultures. In fact, Leah is a professional of that. Leah is the co-founder of the Perk, which is a life and business optimization company. At the Perk, she is a life and business coach as well as an organizational culture consultant. Her background is in building, developing, and scaling remote teams and cultures. And given these very unusual circumstances with all the concern around COVID-19, she's quickly leveraging all her experience and expertise to become the work and plus kids plus social distance expert. So we are just thrilled that you're joining us today, Leah. So thank you and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here with you, talking about this topic that 2 weeks ago, I did not think I'd be talking about.
Yeah. And, here at Envision, we're so busy enabling a lot of organizations that already had remote work technically enabled to expand that, but also organizations that, are newly implementing remote work technically. But all of us, I think, are a little flat-footed these days, finding ourselves working remotely, plus the added aspect of also having our kids at home, right? That's kind of a new twist for many of us. Even though many of us had worked remotely before, having the kids at home too really presents some, certainly opportunities for quality time, but also some challenges as we're trying to balance, putting out quality work as well. So, what advice do you have for us that many of us are finding ourselves kind of flat-footed?
Yeah. So the first thing I want to say is, I've been talking to a lot of companies about this and a lot of individuals. We are not in a normal work from home situation right now. I have worked with many teams over the years to become fully remote first, remote flexible. And I would never, ever recommend that you work from home with your children. When I've worked at remote companies in the past, that's part of the hiring process. You say, just because you'll be working from home, you still need to have childcare. This is not a substitute for childcare. So I would never recommend this. However, we're in a totally different realm right now because we have no choice. There is no choice for our kids to go anywhere than be at home with us. And so even for those of us who are extremely remote savvy and have been doing this for years, this is totally different. We have a wrench thrown into our plans. Many of us have several wrenches thrown into our plans. And so one of the things that I recommend parents do and think about is, do not try to work and parent at the same time. When you're doing that, it's like you're half-assing everything when you really need to be whole-assing one thing. So you need to have a conversation. If you're in a 2-parent household, have a conversation with your partner and then you both need to be talking with your teams and your bosses about how is our schedule going to need to shift right now, because schedules are going to need to shift. And, if we expect everything to be just business as usual, and as leaders of organizations, if we expect our teams with kids at home to be able to work the same number of hours in the exact same way, we're just setting ourselves up and our teams up for failure. And we don't need that right now. None of us need to feel like failures right now.
Right.
With all of everything going on, we really need to be taking care of our emotional wellness and our mental health right now.
We couldn't agree more. We take such a focus of empowering, Envisioners and empowering their time with their families as well. And so, you're the sage coming, you being the sage in this, it's just music certainly to our ears. Quick question.
Yes.
Going off of that, do you have any specific tips for some of the single parent households that now are finding themselves home with their kids?
That's a really great question. And I always like to preface with, I do not have direct experience being a single parent and don't have direct experience being a single parent with this new world that we're in right now of having to do my job full time and be at home with my kids. So honestly, you need to talk to your boss and your team. And this is where I'm really encouraging leaders of organizations to step up and be compassionate. And with each one of your employees, every single one of them has a different situation right now. So we need to do what we can as business leaders to be compassionate and understand that, especially for single parents who have no choice right now but to have their kids at home with them all day, not as much work is going to be done, and things are going to have to be done differently.
Yep. Great point. And to your point earlier of, not half-assing two things, try to be really focused and whole-ass one. We love that because so much of what we talk about is, helping to enrich the whole life of all of our stakeholders, right? And that really takes focus, right? And especially during these times, to your point, at least correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm not understanding your point clearly, but, really supporting employees to have that focus, both focused with their kids when they need to have that focus with their kids, and when they can dedicate that time to work, empowering them to actually focus on work, and hopefully giving them the tools and the support mechanisms that when they need to focus on work, they can, but then also really, to your point, with full empathy and compassion, knowing that their kids are there. And frankly, this can be a very precious time, supporting them with that focus time with their family too. So one other quick thing, Leah, you've been putting out some really informative and fun webinars. Can you tell everybody about those and where to find those? Because that takes some of these tips, which I know you have a couple of more and we want to get to, but that takes some of these tips and expands on them, and frankly is a great use of time.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been doing free webinars very often on the topic of how to work remotely at home with your kids, and then also how to manage a team who is working from home with their kids. So one is directed at those of us who are with our kids and our employees, but then also one for managers. So because it's really important, again, we're in a totally different work from home scenario. So we're in an unprecedented time and we need to shift the way in which we work and the way in which we manage. So you can find those at our website, www.choosetheperk.com, and you can sign up for the webinars there.
Yeah, and I'm just going to emphasize that real quickly. It's www.choosetheperk.com. And it's a great website full of great resources.
Yeah, what are some of the, maybe a tip or two from each of those perspectives?
Yeah, so for how to work remotely with your kids at home, one of the things, if anyone heard that banging, it was my 20-month-old banging her body against my office door. So that's a general thing for everyone, is right now we just need to embrace that there are going to be sleeves being pulled. There are going to be kids yelling in the background of conference calls. There are going to be kids video bombing on our Zoom calls, and let's embrace it. And I also want to call on the leaders who have children at home to be the ones to show that that is okay. Have your kid randomly come on Zoom because they're going to want to, and be okay with that. I think it's really important that we as leaders show. We need to lead by example.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
And, so one of my other tips for working from home with your kids is you need to be really realistic about what you can and can't do, and to communicate that with your team. A lot of people I'm talking to this week, I'm having them shift their perspective. Every time they think I am a failure, I'm telling them to say to themselves, this is an unprecedented time and I'm doing a great job. And it's like, if we can just keep saying that to each other and on our teams, this is an unprecedented time and you're doing a great job.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think everyone needs to feel success and certainly the fact that they're accomplishing work, being productive.
Right. And, there's no blueprint. There was no class in business school called How to Lead Your Team Through a Viral Pandemic. And there was no class of how to be a parent and work from home when with your kids during a viral pandemic. Like, we're figuring it out. And that's why, this podcast is so important. That's why community is so important, that we can have these conversations and navigate this landscape together.
Well, and we always talk about the growth mindset, right? And really living from the growth mindset. And this is just, this really helps us flex those muscles, right? There's no doubt about it. We're all learning together. We all need to be compassionate together, empathetic together, patient together, and know that we're all doing this. I'll tell you, on every video call I've had so far from home, everyone has met my dog, Gus, the 8-pound Morkie, who thinks he's a Great Dane, especially when something comes, through, outside our windows and he starts barking. Everybody knows the Gus bark. So, and they've seen him. And when he actually comes into frame, no one can believe he's 8 pounds because they hear the attack dog. So anyway.
It's so true. And, I just keep saying this is a time for us to be compassionate with each other, to assume positive intent with our teams, and to just trust.
In one of your webinars, which again, a big heartfelt thank you and much gratitude for you for putting out these webinars and these tips. In one of them, you had mentioned, and I don't want to give too much away because I really hope people invest the time to view your webinars. But one of them you mentioned, for folks that have kids that are, preteens and teens, you mentioned, the importance of actually having, conversations with them about that. Can you give us some guidance on those conversations?
I can give guidance, not from my personal experience. I don't have teenagers, but I've been talking.
You still had some really great feedback. And so please.
So I've been talking to a lot of people who have teenagers and being able to have the discussion of, okay, we're all at home together. And when I put this sign on my door or when my door is closed, that means that I'm in a meeting and I'm working. So if you can please text me if something is on fire, but otherwise I'm going to be in here at this time. So just being very open about those discussions. But I also want to point out that I'm finding that every single person who's working from home with their kids is having their own sets of challenges. So those of us that are working from home with littles, a parent has to be with that kid at all time because literally Betty will put a fork in an electrical outlet. We let her be by herself. But then,
Betty is your 20-month-old.
Betty's my 20-month-old. But then we have parents of school-age children, and they're now navigating homeschooling and online schooling and figuring out a structure for their kids to be doing this work. Then you have parents of teenagers who, I don't know about you, but when I was a teenager, all I wanted to do was drive in my car and leave the house. And so parents are having to you cannot leave. You cannot go hang out with your friends. You know, they have these very capable, almost adult children. And so we're all facing our own sets of challenges. And that's not to say that those that don't have kids at home aren't facing challenges as well. I have an employee, Steph, she's completely alone. So while I have the challenges of trying to navigate this world working at home with my kid, she's really lonely because we're social distancing. So it's important for us to be compassionate for every single one of our employees because every single person is dealing with their own challenges. The thing that's uniting us right now is that this has affected all of our lives in some way.
Right. You know, it's the circumstances are certainly not great, but if we can all remember, it's a reminder that we're all in it together. Totally. We are all part of the human, part of humanity, and to support each other in that through it, and we will come out the other side. So.
We will absolutely come out the other side, and I think
we'll be better for it.
I think we are all changing through this, and I think we are all changing into to be better people. Yeah. And yes, we've lost a lot to this, but seeing the surge of innovation and creativity and community and taking care of each other, I'm seeing people doing things they've been talking about doing for years, starting podcasts, writing blogs, YouTube channels, all of this different stuff. It's so amazing to see how people are stepping up in the world.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Well, Leah, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been really insightful, and we're so happy to share the webinars you've created so far. So thanks for doing that as well.
Quick reminder to everybody: choosetheperk.com. Thank you, Leah.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. If you have any questions or you have future topics you'd like us to cover, please connect with us via the link in the show notes. And if you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to like and subscribe. We'll see you next time on Geek Speak with Envision IT.